Are you interested in buying a taxi medallion or looking for TLC insurance? Reach out to West Way Taxi at 212-977-4590.
Black Car News editor and publisher Neil Weiss focuses his editorial on congestion pricing in New York City. Neil writes, "Just when you thought it was ready to go, Governor Kathy Hochul put an indefinite pause on the program in June. That pause ended in November, when Hochul announced a plan to begin implementing congestion pricing by early January, with a 40% across-the-board toll reduction. Under the newly revised plan, which is still subject to several lawsuits, the initial fees for NYC taxis and FHVs would be 75 cents per trip, or $1.50 for an Uber or Lyft trip. These fees would be paid for by passengers and remitted to the MTA by a taxi technology provider or dispatching base." Neil quotes the Black Car Assistance Corporation, known as the BCAC. "This is incredibly good news," the BCAC noted. "When Hochul first began floating the idea of reviving congestion pricing with lower tolls for private vehicles, we were gravely concerned that the revenue would have to be made up and that it could lead to higher per-ride fees for our industry. Amazingly, it appears the Traffic Mobility Review Board had built in enough fat in the initial toll structure that it could handle a 40% reduction and still meet the legally required $1 billion in yearly revenue." Neil concludes his article, writing, "Without congestion pricing toll revenue, MTA officials have said they would likely be forced to scrap some $16 billion worth of upgrades to the city's subway, bus, and commuter rail systems." The city says that more than 700,000 vehicles enter the Manhattan Central Business District daily, reducing travel speeds to around 7 miles per hour on average, which is down 23% since 2010. The MTA, which approved the final fee in November, said the toll will result in at least 80,000 fewer vehicles entering the zone daily, relieving crowding in what is today the most congested district in the United States, as reported by Reuters. If congestion pricing can help fix that mayhem, I have to say I'm in favor of it. Plus, our industry, for once, ended up with a better-than-expected outcome. In his monthly column, Ira Goldstein, executive director of the Black Car Fund, shares his industry insights and thoughts on several topics, including congestion pricing. Ira writes, "As was expected, the announcement of this plan was met with both fierce applause and opposition. At least 8 separate lawsuits were filed both for and against congestion pricing, with potentially more to follow. We recently learned that a Manhattan federal judge will hold a hearing on December 20th to decide whether an injunction will be issued that would prevent congestion pricing from beginning on January 5th. We will be closely monitoring this, as well as the other lawsuits, as they progress. There is a very real possibility that the plan will end up being forced to pause, but it's more likely that the courts will allow the plan to begin." Ira also discusses the ongoing issues at American Transit Insurance Company, or ATIC. "There is no question that the potential insolvency crisis that ATIC is facing needs to be addressed and resolved. Were the state to declare ATIC insolvent, a majority of New York City's drivers throughout all sectors of the ground transportation industry would immediately lose their coverage. While Council Member Carmen De La Rosa's proposed legislation aims to provide some relief for drivers, we have seen little evidence that suggests this legislation would result in a significant premium reduction for drivers. While it might be a piece of an overall package of reforms, it ultimately does nothing to address the current insolvency of ATIC." Ira also discusses a New York City TLC public hearing that will take place on December 11th. New Black Car Fund driver benefits. Remember, if you're an NYC TLC licensed driver, please make sure to sign up for your Black Car Fund driver benefits. In Commissioner's Corner, NYC Taxi and Limousine Commission Chair David Daus shares valuable insights into the industry. In this month's column, Chair Daus focuses on driver pay and app lockouts. Chair Daus writes, "Uber is already threatening to deactivate hardworking drivers if we do not lower driver pay moving forward. This is a full-on campaign, complete with cherry-picked data and advertising buys, coming from the same company that recklessly onboarded thousands of drivers, only to lock them out in an effort to avoid paying them more." Chair Daus concludes by mentioning a new class of TLC police graduates and the launch of Commissioner Cab, which can be watched on TLC's YouTube channel.